Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
I was planning on not doing the review Dutch first, but okay. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
Connor Nielsen.
And Deadpoolzilla.
Indeed they are. Today we are doing a fan film review. Rasco's been a bit busy, so we haven't... Or not a fan film review, a fan comic review. Rasco's been a bit busy and he hasn't had a chance to read this. I just like to branch out from the fan film every so often, do some other fan-related projects, because there's a lot of good work out there. But we don't cover fan fiction because there's a lot of bad fan fiction out there, like copious amounts of bad fan fiction.
If we do that, Dukaloops and I once looked for the top 5 worst fan fictions. The number 1 is Goku and Frank fighting Super Saiyan Hitler.
Amazing. No, so we don't do fan fictions for the very obvious reason that there's a lot of bad fan fiction, and that's mostly because, you know, end of the day, you have all the same tools at your disposal that, like, professional writers do, so it's just not fair. There can be no level of pulling punches when it comes to reviewing something that's, like, just purely written. Fan art is something, I mean, we could conceivably talk about, but you can't really do a full half-hour podcast on a piece of fan art. But the fan comic is, I feel, a lot more niche, a lot harder to pull off just to fucking get done. And so I have tremendous respect for anyone that can manage to put one together.
If that's the case, we should look into the future. This guy called Bleed Man, he does like this crossover type universe of all these characters, and it's centered around the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Interesting. Okay, but like, so the fan comic's just a form that, you know, we haven't talked about on the show yet, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about this, which is what, Connor?
JL8.
By Yale Stewart. Okay, so for those that don't know, this is a really, really interesting comic strip that basically just centers around what if the members of the Justice League were like 7 to 8 years old and in school together. And they still have all their powers, they're still like all aware of each other, and there's like a lot of rule breaking because like the teacher knows who each of them are as far as like secret identities go and all that jazz. But just what if there was a school of these super powered characters from the DC universe, and it is hilarious, it is adorable, and at the same time it is very much heartfelt in my book. What do you two think of it?
For me, it's very much Muppet Babies and Garfield put together, and I know that sounds really weird, but that I feel like that's an apt description. When I heard like, oh, it's just Justice League, but as toddlers, that's going to be fun. Oh, it's actually pretty adorable. The big thing with this is that the artwork it draws you in, pun intended.
And I saw myself in the background of one of these images, and I was like, wow, I was actually drawn into this.
It's almost like an anime type style. I don't know if you guys felt the same way on that, but it draws them and it writes these characters just like how they are as you see them in the DC comics, but they give it like a younger feel, and they don't like over cute if they don't make it too cutesy, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding how much of a fan comic this is. The website I viewed this on, and I assume it's the same one you guys did, there was the copyright DC Comics attached to it.
Everything I've ever found out on JL8, it is a fan effort that is not at all associated with DC. Like, characters are the copy... Or, hold on, let me just go to the About section. JL8 is written and drawn by Yale Stewart. Oh, wait, this is not the original website. One more second.
Because from what I understand, DC's pretty cool with this.
JL8 is an award-winning webcomic from cartoonist Yale Stewart. It follows the adventures of popular DC Comics characters as children in elementary school, mostly funny with a dash of pathos. It should be an enjoyable read for any fans of DC Comics characters as well as people who enjoy traditionally syndicated comic strip. JL8 is not related to DC Comics in any way and is created for the sole purpose of entertainment. Yeah, it is not... Okay. It's, like, DC's been pretty cool with it. DC, I think, has, like... referenced it every now and again.
Yeah, because in Multiversity, I could have sworn they go to the JL8 universe, and like JL8 Batman picks up the guidebook issue in the guidebook issue and like scrolls through it, and when he opens it up, that's when the guidebook portion of the guidebook starts.
I've still not read Multiversity. Like, I was so close to buying it in a bookstore at one point, and then like fate intervened, and apparently it didn't want me to destroy the multiverse because I didn't have my credit card on me.
Oh, that's a shame.
It was a very specific set of circumstances.
The universe is just like, let us die already, Ian. Just let's get it over with.
Yeah. No, it's just it's interesting though because it is a very heartfelt thing, and I know I've seen comics writers and stuff bring it up before, and it's just freaking perfect to me. I adore JL8. I first found this years ago now, using the Stumble button. If anyone remembers that old internet gem, Stumble button was, it still is, this little add-on you could get for your Internet Explorer, Firefox, Google Chrome, whatever, and just put up right in the corner, and you click it and it takes you to a random internet page that someone liked. And that is super enjoyable, and you just waste days on that. And so I stumbled onto JL8, and, like, I read it all to that point in one sitting. All of it.
Now, we are talking about issues 1 through 54. Was it that point? Was it at 54?
When I finished reading it, they were basically just wrapping up Diana's birthday party, which is when you get, like, over the 100 point.
Okay.
And, like, that's the thing, is we're only reviewing the first 54 issues because even though I can apparently read, 100 comic strips in no time, everyone else I know has to, like, dedicate hours to reading a comic strip for some reason. So we're only reviewing the first 54 issues or 54 installments because that is where the first story arc truly ends. It starts up literally on the first strip. They start up the seeds for the story arc, and it is concluded more or less by issue 54. We could have done a couple more because there's some stuff with Karen changing her costume, but I felt like that's more related to the stuff for Diana's birthday party than it is to the new 52 commentary.
Okay, and when did this comic strip get started?
It's hard to put an exact date because I don't think that he puts dates on the strips anywhere, or at least, again, I feel bad. I'm using a host website that just has it in a more friendly feel. But I'm not seeing... Oh, November 26, 2011 was where the very first strip was published. And so, yeah, you get, like, right at the beginning of New 52 at that point.
Sweet. What about the... how currently does it come out? Is it a weekly comic?
It's hard to tell.
So it used to be a weekly comic, but the writer sometimes has, like, other things... like, he has a life outside of this. So it sometimes becomes bi-weekly, and I think the latest was, like, it took, like, 2 months to get the last issue out.
Wow.
Yeah, like, I'm surprised, because the last time I remember reading it, like, currently they were dealing with the Green Lanterns, like, camping, and like they still seem to be doing stuff with that, and that was like years ago that I just fell out of reading it.
It's been slowing down progressively, and yeah, I can understand why. I mean, life gets in the way. Let's not beat around the bush here.
Mm-hmm.
But the quality hasn't gone down. That's the beauty of it.
And one last question. Is Yale Stewart in any way related to Dave Stewart, the popular comic book colorist?
I have no idea.
Okay. Because I see a lot of similarities in the way this comic is colored, and I think Dave Stewart has done some inking or whatever before. But Dave Stewart is like the greatest colorist on the planet, so...
Fair enough. You'd have to look into that your own. But anyway, so what did you guys think of the first 54 installments, just in general? Like, not specific thoughts about the comic, or not general thoughts about the comic, but now general thoughts about this story arc. Just asking.
I thought Connor was going to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I guess I didn't even really give my thoughts on this. I thought it was cute. I thought it was fine. I don't think I had the experience that maybe you guys had with this. I didn't think it was bad at all. I think the standout thing here is clearly the art. I think the art is magnificent. It is clever. And there's a lot of neat visual things that are incorporated here. And I did laugh out loud on a couple of occasions. I think that it is simple, refreshingly so. I like the concept. I like how true it is to its concept. It doesn't burden itself with trying to explain itself. And it was breezy, and I felt that as it went along, it grew more on me as it went along. And I was surprised at how much I was invested in these characters and the relationships by the end of the 54 issues. So... that's my general thoughts. And as far as these first 54 issues go, they are a lot tighter structured than I initially gave it credit for. When I was first reading this came off to me as somewhat loose. And it is loose, and I like its looseness, but it is maybe more tight from a structure level than I initially thought.
I mean, I think it definitely is, because you have Bruce complaining about the costume in the very first issue. The second issue, Clark tells him, oh, hey, I really like your costume. And he's like, you don't have a sense of style. And that is really all what comes to a head in the multiple panels we get for issue 50. And then, 51 to 54 is just the fallout from all of this. Mm-hmm. So I think it is very much a very structurally tight thing. And it's also like, I'm just flipping through different panels here. Issue 52... starts to set up the we already got the idea that Karen likes Superman. We got that set up very early on too, but 52 starts to set up stuff for later on with Diana and her birthday party. It starts to set up a sense that she's getting jealous of Diana and Clark's relationship. There's a lot here, and it really goes to some places for me.
I will say Karen holding the box that said cookies for Clark while she's on the verge of tears. That was pretty heartbreaking. That was rather sad.
It is, and also I don't even like Wonder Woman and Superman together, but this comic made me go, I was this close to shipping you guys.
I mean, it gets a really good job, and something I've always said, just whenever anyone brings up the Wonder Woman-Superman relationship, I've always thought that, if this was a young Superman, I could see that they would at least think that they'd be good for each other and try dating or feel some level of attraction to one another one way or the other. But I think ultimately it's a relationship that's doomed to fail because they're two very, very different people. And so I think that this ultimately, we're getting past where issue 54 leaves us. I feel that this does handle their relationship really well. I like that it's kind of one way. Clark's attracted to Diana, not the other way around, and you got Supergirl attracted to Clark. Or not Supergirl, Power Girl. Yeah, Power Girl. Attracted to Clark. I think that works really, really well.
Yeah. I think now, now that I think about it, I think they're now doing a Superman and Lois story right now in the JL8 comic.
Yeah, and I was actually, here's the bad thing, guys. I reread issues 1 to 54 in between the time I contacted you and recording this, but I didn't just reread issues 1 to 54. I'm like at 170 right now. Y'all are slow in comparison. Like, I don't feel like I'm a fast reader, but Jesus.
It's like, this is the cute thing about JL8 is that it's like potato chips. You can't just read one page of it.
Oh, definitely. Like, every time I come back to this, I just gotta go, oh man, this is so frickin' adorable. Everything about this just, it makes me smile so much, and it's so much fun to read. Like, my Twitter feed the last couple days just been me tweeting things about JL8. Like, yeah, it's got those heartfelt moments like we were talking about. It's got adorable moments like we were talking about. And then sometimes it's just freaking hysterical. Like, I love that strip where it has nothing to do with anything. They are not setting up anything. It is just a fun little comic strip of Batman walking through the halls of the school going, pachoo, pachoo, pachoo. And he's like, what are you doing? Clark comes up, what are you doing? Playing Spider-Man? Oh. And then he sits down and starts doing it with him. That's so perfect to me. Because, like, when I was a kid, I did shit like that. And people thought I was weird because of it. But I just had a really active imagination. That's just the kind of thing I would do. I'd be off on my own on the playground at recess doing crap like that. And I was having fun.
Yeah. I think my favorite, my favorite issue, and it's one of many, but this one always comes to my mind, is when Batman and when Clark and Bruce are in school, and Kara's in the back smiling and waving at them, and Bruce thinks she's smiling at him, and he's like, and Clark goes, "Well, wave back at her," and he gives this doopy creepy smile to wave back at her. He just freaks Kara out, and he's like, "What did you do? I smiled at her, dude. You have the creepiest smile ever."
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff like this where it works really, really well. It's really, really funny.
One of my biggest laughs was where they say, "We are men," and it's a low angle shot of them in their new 52 costumes, and I thought that was really funny. I think there's a really interesting thing here that there's a difference between like the general ideas of acting like a man and acting like a grown up. Like when growing up, my dad's always like, be a man, and when he says it, he means be an adult, basically. But I know there's that's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people don't associate being a grown up with being an adult, and I guess that's different for other people. So.
Yeah, I just thought that it really, really worked well in how it sets up this idea of, oh, well, the classicness of comic book characters. Like, there's a meta-commentary here in that the classicness of comic book characters are seen as for kids, so they play this out as the boys not liking being seen as kids, as boys, so they dress up in these really ridiculous costumes, but more ridiculous than their current ones, with all the lines on them and stuff. And, like, everything points out how silly the costumes themselves are. But, like, they just have it in their head that, oh, we're men now, we're bigger, we're scarier, and, we're more adult. And it like, on some level it works, it's reinforcing itself. Like, I really, really love number 43, I was just looking for it, where Barry draws lines on his costume with a permanent marker, and he doesn't know if he's doing it right or not. And, like, to me, that is probably the biggest critique and best critique of the new 52 costumes I ever saw.
You can't just change your costume.
Fun.
I'm sorry, what was that, Deadpoolzilla?
I was just saying, and the best part is it's not like this whole story arc with the 52 costume parody is that it's not mean-spirited or anything. It's just like a little tease, really.
Yeah, and, like, I think that's probably the best way to try to show these kinds of problems with the thing is, like, you're letting perception from the outside color what you're doing too much. Because in issue 50, we get this whole confrontation between Bruce and Clark about why are we doing this? It's not for ourselves. It's to be seen as better by a bunch of, and like, let me find the way he breaks it down, bullies, pranksters, thieves, manipulators, fanatics, narcissists, and clowns. I really like that. Like, they're not putting on the costumes for themselves. They're doing it to try to impress, like, these people that don't care about them anyway. Like, we make comics so much edgier, and we do stuff to try to take the heart out of them. Like, I don't know, make Captain America a fucking Nazi. To try to impress people from the outside who aren't going to read the comics anyway. And this just has, like, a really great, you know, of course, it's the best Superman thing ever, right? Where he's like, so yeah, I'm tired of this. You can keep trying to change their minds, but I'm done. Tell Mr. Pennyworth, thanks for the suit, but it's just not me. Honestly, I hope it's not you either. Whenever my best friend Bruce shows up, let him know I went to look for him. And then he just flies away. That's the most Superman moment I have read in a comic in so long.
I also like a lot of the fun references. Although I imagine the references is Mr. Schultz. Is that the teacher's name?
Yes.
Is that a reference to the fellow who created Calvin and Hobbes?
I
think
sure.
I always thought it was Charles Schultz. Like, it was the guy who created.
Created Peanuts. My bad. Yeah, my bad. So I guess Deadpool Zilly, you had said that you saw a lot of anime influence in the artwork here. I saw a lot of Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts influence in here.
I think
from
it's
an art
more.
Standpoint.
When I said anime influence, I guess like facial features. Just like how the eyes and like just the facial and character body designs are made. But yeah, it is like I said earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, well, anime does take a lot of cues from early days of Warner Brothers cartoons and Looney Tunes and Disney and such. So maybe it is just art informing art and different cultures informing other cultures.
Yeah, I could see both of it. I think it is more just simplistic comic art, like comic strip art, where it's like, you know, this is how he was able to get so many of these out for so long very consistently, is this isn't really super complicated character design stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he can... The art looks great, and it looks great because of how consistent it is, and it's able to, like, capture a lot of different emotion within that, so that just really helps it. And
it's clever, and it's really clever. Like when the marble goes up in smoke, the smoke says poof, but it doesn't say it in a hit you over the head kind of way. You got to take a step back and look at it.
And see, I didn't even notice that, which is why I shouldn't critique you as much as I do for taking forever to read comics. Because now that I'm looking at that on panel 20 or strip 22, I see it now, but I've never noticed that before because I'm just like, oh, haha, the joke was funny.
Can I also say that I just love the designs of Lex and the like junior villain society or whatever they call themselves,
Legion of Doom.
I thought they changed. I forgot if they changed it in the JL8 comic.
Yeah, and Bruce calls them something else. They don't like have a specific name, at least in these 54 issues. They don't. Bruce calls them like Legion of Losers or something like that.
I would like if they called them the JL8. That would be fun.
Oh, that'd be good. There's a lot of like really clever stuff though. Like Connor mentioned the teacher, Mr. Schultz. There's a lot of stuff. Like, I love that the Joker in this isn't, a young version of the Joker or something like that. It's a kid in a red hoodie. I think that's hilarious.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then there's just other stuff, like later on, Neil Gaiman shows up.
Which is cool.
He owns a bookstore, and it's the greatest thing ever.
Apparently, Neil Gaiman gave us his consent for that.
Oh, that's really cool. Oh, I should have made you guys read fucking everything. But then we'd be recording at like 3 a.m. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that is just really, really neat to see all the references. Like, it's early on in like strip 13 or 14, something like that, where they talk about the gym teacher retired, and I'm pretty sure it's a reference to Black Cat. which is just neat. Or no, Wildcat, sorry. Black Cat, whatever. It's a cat-based character in comics.
Gym Teacher Darkseid was one of my favorite parts of, well, one of my highlights of this reading experience. It was really funny, and the coloring, and the detail that's put into that panel of him saying "dodge" and it looks like dodgeballs are coming out of his eyes, and they're all trying to dodge him. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, you see Bruce has the line shooting out for his grappler.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fun. There's just a lot of stuff in this that, like, it looks great. It's really, really neat. Like, I'm so disappointed Darkseid Gym Teacher has not made a comeback yet because it's hilarious.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
And the when we were talking about Mr. Schultz and all that, where was also Mr. Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, was there? I must have missed that. Where was that?
I think he's is he the homeroom teacher or the principal?
I don't know. I haven't seen that yet because I've just started rereading it, and I'm up in right at the end of the birthday party stuff right now. But man, it's just solid. There's just so much. Like, we can go through this, strip by strip and talk about all the different things we love about it. So as not to just praise this to death, and I hate to do this, but what do you have that's negative about it?
All right, I'll go with this one then. I will say that it takes a little bit to find its footing. I think in some of the earlier strips, every issue, or it seems like every strip ends with, we don't really know how to wrap this up, so someone's just going to yell something. And I get that they're kids and kids yell all the time, but I don't know, that always gets on my nerves when a cartoon or something, we're trying to find a punchy way to end this. What's that?
It's like hitting the emergency button.
Yeah, it's a bit of an easy button, I guess, where it's we have to have little Bruce say, "Shut up!" Okay, I guess that's over. Okay, next one. And also, I guess from a structuring standpoint, it's very difficult to read these out of context to try to lure people in to read them. I think, I know my brother, back in the day, one of our favorite podcasts was a podcast called Assemble After Dark, and the Facebook group was very active, and they would always share out of context strips from JL8. And my brother said, "This is stupid. What is this?" And it drove him crazy anytime anybody shared one of those. And reading it as a continuity and as an ongoing story, it really works. But if you were to miss like two of them, it is so continuity heavy. And this is all just depending on certain kinds of readers. This won't bug some people, and it will bug others. But it is one of those things of know what you're getting yourself into. It all builds on itself, and maybe taking one out of context, it won't necessarily work on its own.
I'd agree with that to a certain extent. I think there are a handful that work really well out of context, like the Spider-Man one, and I've just been tweeting a couple of the ones that I find like really, really funny on their own. Like there's one where Bruce is like really curious because there's a whole line going up to the swing set, and then he's like, "What's going on?" And Diana's like, Clark's giving rides on the swing set. And you just have Clark like throwing kids on the swing and Green Lantern catching them with a giant baseball mitt. And I think that really works out of any context whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, and don't get me wrong, there are stuff here that do work out of context. But if I were to, like, I don't know, arbitrarily pick a number, chances are if I just showed that to somebody...
let's go ahead and do that. We'll hit the archive. We'll
32. 32.
Okay, 32 is... Yeah, this is like the whole thing about Bruce deciding that they'll get their costumes. So yeah, it is really context heavy, I agree. But there are, I feel, some strips that really work well on their own.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, I'd agree. You probably shouldn't share out of context ones, but like, if there are ones that do not require context, I feel that works a lot better.
Yeah. My thing is much like you guys, is that it gets kind of continuity heavy, and for a slice of life type storytelling, and to be posted almost like not consistently online, that gets a little annoying because you have to be like, "Oh crap, I gotta backtrack my mind real quick and hit the back button a few times." I'm like, "Oh, that happened. Now to get back to where I was now."
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially as these have gotten like further and further apart with being posted.
I understand, circumstances that they be, um, but yeah, you would. But reading that on a basis, and now that's coming out so slow. Again, I totally understand. It's just that it gets just a little bit. I got to go back and just to refresh my memory.
Yeah, yeah, that does get to be a bit of a drag, and I feel like it all depends on how you're reading it, right? Because like when you first discover it, having all that continuity, having these story arcs, just make it really really fun and really great to read. Um, on the other hand, when they're like separated by a month at a time and you've been reading it for a long time and you're still on like I really enjoyed the Diana's birthday party thing, and I read from like that's when I came on and I caught up to that point and I was all caught up. I think it's hard to remember exactly where I was, but I was all caught up, and then like the next, and then I started reading it currently, and I got to I'd say like the middle or maybe I felt I was a good way through the whole thing with the Green Lantern's camping trip, but like that, I started to lose track of it, and it kind of fell off my priority list to keep up with because of that.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys have any more complaints about this?
You know, I will kind of agree that some of them just tend to end with a joke that you don't necessarily need. I'm just like looking through random ones. Like there's this strip number 101. This isn't one of the ones we're reviewing, but it's kind of just a perfect example of what you were talking about. Where like there's a story development that Bruce overhears a conversation, and like the panel before the last panel is all you need for the story, but then the last panel is just a panel of Bruce on his own being like, I'm stuck. And it ends that way for a joke, and it's a cute little laugh, but it is not really necessary, so I'd agree with you there. As for other complaints that like I specifically have against it, it's weird because this isn't a consistent problem anymore. It's just like in the early days, the arts, like the coloring is just a little flat.
Okay.
It doesn't have a lot of depth to the coloring. There's not a lot of different shading used, but that goes away as it goes on. As it gets
I thought that was
bigger
a
and bigger.
stylistic choice. Maybe it wasn't.
Just click through the archive and look at some of the newer strips compared to some of the older ones. And it's just like there's just more shading used, and that makes a big difference.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, it worked for me, but if people aren't fans of more flat traditional color schemes, I can understand why they would not
Maybe I'm
enjoy
just
that
spoiled.
about the art.
Maybe I'm just spoiled. It's one of those things that it does a lot of the this kind of normal in comic strips that it's not in comic books, but it does a lot of flat color backgrounds. And I don't know, maybe it's me. I just really like scenery. So
I agree with that. No, I see where you're coming from.
I really enjoy scenery. Like I like scenery jokes. Like one of my favorite web comics is called Existentialist Comics, and there will be jokes just in the background of scenes sometimes. They don't always do it, but like I always love those. Like they did one called Philosopher's Park, and it's a whole riff on Socrates and Jurassic Park and all this stuff. But just in the background, they have like an old hunched over man with a beard in the like pose from Jurassic Park, and it says that under it. It's funny. So I really like background stuff. And with so much of this being in the classroom, it feels like that'd be a great opportunity to put in references and nods of stuff on the walls to like other comics and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be cool. I did like some of the detail though, like when. I can't remember. It's an overhead shot of the classroom at one point. I think it's when they're entering with their new suits, or maybe it's when the teacher is saying good morning to everybody. But Power Girl just has her hands up like woohoo, and I was like, oh, that's a nice little detail. It's not a very big detail, just in the corner, but I liked it. It was a nice detail.
I agree. There's a lot of stuff like that. I love the group shots that we get from time to time. Those are just really cool. Like the one I chose for the thumbnail is just all of them reading. That's just adorable, and it looks really cool. Like that's almost a wallpaper in a lot of ways.
And that's a great out of context one where Flash is reading Calvin and Hobbes, and then what's her face Wonder Woman is reading the myths stories, and then Superman's doing his hops and whatnot. But the actual joke is he's sitting on top of something, but he's not actually sitting on top of something. He's floating on top of it. And then Batman's reading Art of War. Like that's a funny little out of context one that you could show somebody.
Yeah, I like that. And I don't know. It's just it's little character moments like that we get that I really really enjoy.
Yeah,
like it's so weird because this is on a lot of levels just a silly thing that probably wouldn't work in most other contexts, but just this seems to get the characters in a really fundamental way, and I very much enjoyed that about it.
I did too. I like this Wonder Woman quite a lot, actually. I really like this Superman. Batman took me a little time to get used to. Generally speaking, when Batman's in a group environment, and it's not just here, but it's just in general, he does kind of annoy me. But I got used to him. I really like this Flash. John Jones is a lot of fun, if I guess a little underdeveloped.
He gets a little more in. He gets more in the Lantern camping trip stuff.
I'm sure about that. Yeah, in these first 54 issues, he just sort of shows up as our Eisen, as a POV character, and then he somewhat disappears. But I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed the characterization.
Me too. And then sometimes I feel like another small complaint. I feel like the art gets a little under detailed in some of the more distant shots. And maybe that's just me being like, I really love when you can zoom in on a thing and everything, even far off in the background, looks great. Like, some of these have really cool group shots that I'd planned to use for the thumbnail, but, like, I really looked at them like, you can't really tell who anyone is if you're, like, just looking at it without any idea what this is. So that kind of stuff. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's a huge problem. It's just that it's like not quite to my preference.
That's okay.
And speaking to what I was saying earlier about I like stuff being in the background. They do that on occasion. Like I'm trying to find the strip real quick where Bruce goes home and looks at his Robin. I think that's like 52. You see the posters he has in his room, and it's Zorro, Sherlock Holmes, and the Grey Ghost. And like that is perfect for what Bruce Wayne would have as a child of posters in his room. The Grey Ghost obviously being the fill-in for Shadow, but still, I really, really like that. And then there's, just stuff like that I really enjoy, and so I'd like to see more of that kind of thing too, just because, especially if he has to put more distance between strips, I'd like, just for me personally, I think it might make it more worth that wait if you had more rich detail in a thing.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah. Although to be fair, with all of that, like, are you suggesting to make the issues longer, or pages rather?
Not necessarily. I just feel like instead of doing a flat color background, just put something on a wall. And that might, this might be a double-edged sword. Adding more detail might make it take longer, right? And that's, to be fair, that is not something that's done a lot in in comic strips. That's more a comic book thing to have a lot of background detail. In comic strips, you are more often allowed to just have it be a flat color, and he does at times use that to make a punchline, like have the panel turn red in shock or whatever. So it's definitely not like something that's necessary, just random thought. Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about with this?
It's one of the most sweet and pure, innocent things I've seen on the internet.
Yeah, you know what? I only read 54 issues, but it does stay true to itself. It establishes what it is, and it doesn't stray from that. And I respect that artistic vision, staying true to itself.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just keep reading this. I love it to death. It's so much fun. It's so adorable. It really gets the characters, and it's just it's a barrel of laughs, and it's got moments that just makes me go, "This is why I love superheroes." It's one of those things that I think could only exist as a fan project. I can't really see someone pitching this to DC Comics and DC letting them do it.
Well, I could see this if it actually got put into DC Comics. I could actually see it as like a 1 or 2 page like little at the end of like the all age comics like Scooby-Doo or whatnot.
Yeah, if there was like an all age Justice League comic or something like that, maybe, but I doubt it would run for 200 strips like this because they'd want a full page, at least, right? It'd just be it'd be a very different thing.
Well, they'd probably make it a digital first. Then they would make it run. Then they would put it in print, and then it would only run for about 30 issues in print, and then it would get canceled.
Right. Bombshells. Why?
Batman 66. No.
Otherwise, no. I love it to death. I would love for DC to allow it to be published in a collection. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, and again, DC is clearly cool with this thing, so...
Yeah, I don't know what, like, the legal thing would be there, because, he's using all these characters that he doesn't have the rights to, that families still have payments they have to get for, and all that stuff, so, I don't know. There'd probably be legal blockade to make that happen, but if they could make it happen, that would be awesome. Alright, let's go ahead and go on to ratings. Connor, what will you rate this?
This might seem low, but keep in mind, I just read this, and I think something like this, it'll take time before I really fall in love with it. But like I said, by the time I was done with these 54 issues, it had mostly grown on me. So for right now, I'm going to give this 3.5 Dark Side Gym Teachers out of 5.
Okay.
You monster.
Yeah, let me ask you this follow-up then. Do you plan to keep reading it?
Maybe. If I see it pop up in a little bit, I might say, hey, you know what? I remember reading that. I'll probably go pick up where I left off.
Okay. All right. Deadpoolzilla, what will you rate this?
I will give this 4 creepy, weirdo Batman smiles out of 5.
For me, I think I'm going to give this 4.5 out of 5 Green Lantern night lights that help Hal sleep.
That was a really good callback joke.
Yeah. I had a really, really strong pitch for a comic, and given that there is a small chance that Yale Stewart might actually sit down and watch this, I'm going to pitch it now. So, I'd like to do a flashback issue of Hal getting the Green Lantern ring, and I'd like to base this off of an actual thing that happened to me, alright? So, for whatever reason, when I was a kid, I didn't want to eat some oatmeal at one point. It's not that I didn't like oatmeal in general, it's just that one day I didn't feel like having oatmeal. And my mom wasn't having any of it. She made me oatmeal.
So she
sat
gave you
oatmeal.
a Green Lantern ring.
Yeah. She made me oatmeal. She sat oatmeal down in front of me, and she was like, Ian, eat your oatmeal. I'm like, I don't want it. And she's like, well, you're either going to eat your oatmeal or you're not going to get up from that spot for the rest of the day. And so I sat there for the whole day.
Wow.
And I feel with the oatmeal just getting cold in front of me. So I feel like that's like the perfect origin for how Hal gets the Green Lantern ring, by just being stubborn.
That would be funny.
Yeah. So Yale Stewart, feel free, use it. I would adore seeing that pop up there. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the Santa.
And I am the Don Juan of Comic-Con.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.